Okay, before the break, I talked to you about the conspiracy theory with new life, essentially, which it's gone from, I guess I would say, some people have really bad side effects to the vaccine. Do we know for sure that the vaccine hasn't killed anyone? They've now gone to the vaccines for COVID have killed thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, or even hundreds of thousands of people. That's the new conspiracy. Now, Tucker Carlson, Fox News propagandist, is a guy who's been, I wouldn't even really call it playing coy. The only aspect of it that's coy is that Tucker is almost certainly vaccinated and works at Fox News, which has stricter vaccination guidelines than Joe Biden proposed 2 weeks ago to the United States. Remember, Joe Biden's plan, his directive, is if you've got more than 100 employees, everybody either has to be vaccinated or has to test weekly. Okay. Fox's policy is you've got to be vaccinated and submit your vaccination information, or you've got to test daily and you've got to wear masks at Fox News facilities. So while on air, Tucker and others are attacking the Biden plan on vaccination requirements, Fox, they work for Fox, which has a stricter plan. So, OK, Tucker, he's almost certainly been vaccinated. He was probably first in line as soon as he could get it, maybe even got it early. All right. So Tucker has gone now from repeating. I don't even know that I want to use the word milder, but repeating somewhat milder conspiracies about vaccines to now repeating the debunked claim that thousands might be dying from vaccinations. Media Matters has the coverage and says during the September 20 broadcast of Tucker Tonight, Tucker railed against the vaccine requirement for active duty service members, lying that thousands could have died, that thousands have died from the vaccine. In a segment that included claims that the vaccination requirements are a ploy to weed out and expel, quote, sincere Christians in the ranks, the free thinkers, the men with high testosterone levels, and anyone else who does not love Joe Biden, and accusations that the U.S. military runs PR for Satanism, Carlson claimed that a presentation given to members of the Army, quote, falsely claims that only 3 people have died from the vaccine. Carlson then told viewers that reports collected by the Biden administration itself indicate the number is actually in the thousands. All right, I'm going to explain that in a moment. Let's listen. Very dangerous propaganda.
White supremacy in the military is a crisis, said the most unscrupulous people in Washington. But that's not what it was about. What you just saw on tape was, in fact, a power grab. The message: no one who does not support our political party is allowed to bear arms. That's what they're saying very clearly. And because it's the Democratic Party doing the talking here, there was also, needless to say, a vicious racial angle, too, because there always is.
Right.
Watch Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee explain.
The Guard is 90 some odd percent, I believe, male. Only about 20% of white males voted for Biden. You got to figure that in the Guard, which is predominantly more conservative, and I see that on my social media and we know it, they're probably not more than 25% of the people that are there protecting us who voted for Biden. The other 75% are in the class that would be the large class of folks who might want to do something.
So if you're white, you're dangerous, says a sitting member of Congress. That clip was from January. Of course, that was the same month that Lloyd Austin announced he was cracking down on this extremism. Then a few months later.
Yeah, January was the same month as something else, too. I just don't remember what else happened in January.
Later, reading from the same song sheet, Mark Milley told the U.S. Congress he was working to root out white rage in the military. Okay. And yet, after all of this, because we're keeping score, as of today, we're not aware of a single white supremacist on active duty who has been discovered by the Pentagon and fired. Not one. So that threat didn't exist.
Interestingly, would we even know if that's the case? I mean, are discharge proceedings typically made public? I mean, it's not clear. It's a question at minimum.
At all. It was fake. That was all a lie. Several National Guard troops were relieved of duty around the inauguration, though no one has ever explained why they were fired. Then a senior commander in the Space Force, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer, lost his job, and we know why. His crime was criticizing Marxism. That's a firing offense now. Then in August, Lloyd Austin came up with a new political purity test. This one was specifically designed to separate the obedient from the free. Can't have any of the latter category. Austin said he planned to fire anyone in the entire armed services who would not submit to the COVID-19 vaccination shot.
So Tucker now building to the case that there should be no mandatory vaccination in the military, and then going on to say some really, really wacky things here. Let's continue.
That would get the Democratic Party nothing. The point of mandatory vaccination is to identify the sincere Christians in the ranks, the free thinkers, the men with high testosterone levels, and anyone else who does not love Joe Biden, and make them leave immediately. It's a takeover of the U.S. military. Here's how they're doing it. This show has just obtained a PowerPoint that the Army is using to justify mandatory vaccines to the troops. This is an actual slide from it on your screen. You will notice there the sympathetic portrayal of Satanism. How many children were sacrificed to Satan because of the vaccine? The slide reads, apparently sarcastically. Then the presentation proceeds to list the so-called tenets of Satanism, which are taken straight from the Temple of Satanism website. So here you have the United States Army doing PR for Satanism. The rest of the presentation is less shocking than that, but it's utterly shoddy and dishonest. For example, it falsely claims that only 3 people have died from taking the COVID vaccine. Reports collected by the Biden administration itself indicate that number is actually in the thousands.
Okay, so that is not true in even remotely the sense that Tucker Carlson is saying it. The false reporting on the VAERS system, which anybody can submit, is then called Biden administration data that's being collected. The website just exists. It was there under Trump, and it was there. It continues to be there under Joe Biden. And then the false or at least unchecked reporting of side effects and deaths to VAERS is used to say stuff like what Tucker just said. Now, I'm not going to pull it. I don't want to encourage anyone to submit a false report, but you can go and look at the VAERS system and start the process of submitting a report. Don't do it. I did it up until the point at which I would have submitted it. And I started typing in David Pakman, Sir David Pakman died from the vaccine, treated by this doctor, whatever. You can just submit it. Anybody can submit the information. And it's being taken as, quote, proof by the anti-vax to say that all of these people are dying. They take it as gospel evidence because it's a government website, but they're ignoring the fact that it's not verified. Anybody can show up and report anything, and then it's part of the reporting. It doesn't mean that these are verified, vetted, or confirmed instances of vaccine issues, problems, or whatever the case may be. There's no validation required there. Now, I think it's worth mentioning, even if it were true that thousands died from the vaccine. Now, I hesitate to even do this because it's such a can of worms, but if it's true that let's call it 3,000. Imagine 3,000 people died from the vaccine. It's not true, but just imagine. You're still way more likely to die of COVID as a healthy person than of the vaccine. I'm not saying it would be okay if thousands of people died from the vaccine, but if thousands of people died from the vaccine out of the 182 million fully vaccinated people, that would mean you have a 0.0016 chance of dying from the vaccine. That's 500 times smaller than your chance of dying from the virus. If it were true, we would have to really think about that. But it's not true. Importantly, it's not true. So it's Tucker, again, being extremely irresponsible about vaccines. And then also recently, just to kind of just show you the full circle on how irresponsible he's being, he also said Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro doesn't need to be vaccinated because he had COVID. This is not true, but this is Tucker claiming it. Okay,
put them in place. Not some restaurant is just following his orders. So de Blasio just issued a warning to Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro. He told Bolsonaro not to come to the UN General Assembly because he's not vaccinated.
Yeah.
We need to send a message to all the world leaders, including most notably Bolsonaro from Brazil, that if you intend to come here, you need to be vaccinated. If you don't want to be vaccinated, don't bother coming, because everyone should be safe together.
Really? Because Bolsonaro already recovered from COVID, so he doesn't need the vaccine. No one who's recovered from COVID needs the vaccine. They have greater immunity than people who get the vaccine. This is insane.
That is not true. That is a lie. What's insane is that Tucker is repeating these things. We now have multiple studies which show you are more likely to be reinfected if you've had COVID and don't get the vaccine than if you do get the vaccine. Okay, it is not true what Tucker is saying. What is apparently true is that if you're vaccinated and recovered from COVID, you have stronger immunity than if you were merely vaccinated alone. It's not a reason to go out and try to get COVID. but there are studies which say recovery plus vaccination is better than vaccination alone. A lot of caveats, depends on timing. Did you recover from one of the earlier strains or did you recover from a later? There's all these different caveats, but what Tucker is saying is absolutely wrong. And this gets us to the next story, which is that of the Brazilian unvaccinated president. One of our sponsors is Sheath Underwear. It is the hottest part of the year right now. If you're a guy who wears traditional underwear, you know about the sticking and the rubbing and the chafing. Not something you have to worry about with Sheath Underwear, which is designed with multiple ergonomic compartments in the front, which prevent skin-on-skin contact, keeping everything separate, dry, cool, and comfortable. Sheath actually just re-released 2 limited edition styles, the Flower of Life, featuring a stylish enamoring flower pattern and bold geometric waistband. The other limited edition style is the Mesh Airflow, specially designed to be lightweight and promote extra coolness and breathability. Sheath Underwear was designed by an Iraq War veteran who was looking for a way to keep himself dry and comfortable in the hot desert. And the underwear he developed ended up being perfect for just about any context in everyday use. Sheath Underwear is giving my viewers 20% off when you go to sheathunderwear.com/Pacman and use the promo code Pacman.